Hi, my name is Karstein, and I'm a game design student. Today, I want to talk to you about which platforms are right for your game. Bearing in mind that making our game cross-platform reaches out to a wider audience of players and lowers their bar of entry, why would we not operate on all the existing platforms by default? With this video, I will teach you why not all games are on all platforms and help you choose the right platforms for your game. Before deciding what platforms to develop your game for, we should take a look at what cross-platform design really is. In computing, cross-platform is an attribute conferred to software that are implemented and operate on multiple computer platforms. In game development, we stretch this definition a little further and say that cross-platform is an attribute conferred to games that operate on multiple platforms. For example, a cross-platform game may run on your PlayStation 3 and your iPad. A game doesn't need to operate on more than 2 different platforms before it is considered cross-platform. So what is a platform? A platform includes hardware architecture and a software framework, where the combination of these allows software like games to run. We can simply define it as a place to launch software. When you're planning your game development for multiple platforms, there are things you should ask yourself. How will the controls work? For example, on a PC you get the mouse and keyboard. On a Wii you get nunchucks. How will that translate? Or on a tablet, where all you do is press the surface. How will you translate the controls? How will the graphical user interface look? Again, on a PC you might have a lot of information in the graphical user interface, but how will that look on a smartphone? How big will the game be? Will your graphics be really realistic and big and a lot of 3D models? Can the hardware on your other platforms handle that? For example, this is Mercenaries 2 developed for the PlayStation 3, and as you can see, this is the PlayStation 2 version, and you see that the game doesn't render very well. It's also important to think about the gameplay, how it will remain cross-platform, as platforms have different resolutions. Having a game on a tablet where you click a lot of buttons might not be the greatest idea on a smartphone, because your fingers might get in the way of the screen. Also, it's important to think about if the players will enjoy it. If they play 1 hour a day, you need to make your game work in different environments. The reason behind this is that mobile phone players usually spend an hour or 2 playing the game, but for example, PC players or console players might spend a lot more time than that. So if you're targeting both those platforms, you need to make your game enjoyable for both those amounts of time. An important rule is to make games for platforms without sacrificing other platforms. The reason behind this rule is that when you designing for multiple platforms, you design to the lowest common denominator, and this can make your game really suffer if you're not careful. You should choose the platforms where your game makes the most sense. Having your game out on a lot of platforms is good, but be careful about stretching too far, as it can turn you into a jack of all platforms, where it lacks focus, and is not especially enjoyable on any of the platforms, but it is okay on all of them. Having a game out on multiple platforms will spread your game out to a much wider audience. The reason behind this is that people use very different platforms and have very different preferences. And with going cross-platform, you can reach out to them on their platform of preference instead of forcing them to buy a platform just to play your game. This essentially lowers the bar of entry for your game. Another great thing is that with cross-platform, if you're smart about your design and development, you can build your game once and save costs with middleware such as Unity, compared to if you were to develop your game for one platform only and then had to build from the ground up on another platform. Just realize, as with more platforms, the complexity of being smart about design and development simultaneously rises, and so does the complexity of maintenance.